Welcome. I call this regular school board meeting officially to order. It is Tuesday, March 21st. It is 6:32. This is the monthly meeting of ISD 709 Duluth School Board, and we are in the East High School as we await the finishing touches on the Duluth Services Center up on the Central Hillside site. Again, we welcome all of you, and we start with our roll call.
Member Eater. Present. Member Kirby.
Here.
Member Lafleur-Kemp.
Here.
Member Lopal.
Here.
Member Oswald.
Right here.
I am here. Member Sandholm.
Present.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Zunich.
Excuse.
Excused. HR Director Severance. Board Secretary Kemp. Here. And let's see, who are our student reps today? We have student rep Elsa Priest. Here. Student rep Lauren Molitor. Here. And do we have any other student reps? Not today. Great. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Again, board members, we have been given our agenda and our board book items, and our next item on our agenda is 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask to rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Board members, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Moved by member Eater, seconded by member Zadowski. Are there any discussion, questions? Superintendent Magus, are we looking to any kind of adjustment on the agenda or not? We're not. Consent? We're not. There's nothing on here that we were going to pull?
We were tabling the DiPolito resolution.
But I don't see it on our agenda.
That would have been marked for last meeting.
Just want to make sure before we go forward. I don't see it on consent.
Nope.
I don't see it as an action item, so we're good. Agenda is exactly as it looks on our board book.
Great.
So again, we have a motion by Eater, a second by Zadowski. All those in favor of accepting the agenda tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 7-0, the motion carries. Next on our agenda is number 5, and it is our school and community recognition, and I turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Opal, and good evening, board, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Appreciate that. I would be remiss to not say thank you to all of our student performers tonight. So let's give them a round of applause. To listen and hear our students and just to see them perform, and it always puts a big smile on my face just to see them. So, but we're also here for another celebration. So tonight I would like to recognize the members of our strategic planning team. So members of the strategic planning team, please come up as I call your name, and I hope I do a great job of not butchering the last 2 names here.
And I know that the members of the team, there were many people that put in many hours. And so there was a invite sent to a large number of people. Adele Wellens, our communications officer, is out ill today, and so we don't have the finalized list as to who was able to attend tonight for recognition, but we still want to say thank you to the group, because there were hours and hours and days of work that were put into this. So just wanted to clarify, in case we don't have many people stepping up, it's because they've already put in many nights.
Thank you. Adam Metzer, Adele Wellens, Brenda Sparks, Brian Jugman, Brian Kermischek, Bree Eisenberg, Callie Tinsley, Simone Zunich, Cindy Miller, Jeanette Siebel, Erica Whitmer Graves, Sulena, Hamilton Smith, Jacob Hensela, Jamie Smith, Jason Crane, Jen Larva,
Yes.
Jennifer Moby, Kayla Carroll, Nate Smith, Nikki Kumar, Patty Paquette, Shannon Ruzo, Tanya Lake, Teresa Severance, and Zach. Awesome. And also, Superintendent myself also participated on the strategic planning team, so I wanted to obviously acknowledge us. But as a member of the team, I do want to say thank you to all the Knights. There was a lot of deep work, a lot of deep thinking that went into the strategic planning process, and a lot of pizza to get us through it. So I just want to say thank you for all your time and energy on it. And all of the members who are not here, I also want to thank them publicly as well. So thank you.
And I just too want to say how important our strategic planning process has been. We're getting close to a point of having it finalized. We're looking at, and there's an update tonight, my board update, but looking at having it finalized in April at our April board meeting. But again, there were countless hours that were put into focus groups of staff, students, and families, as well as the desired daily outcomes that were really deeply clarified, and our operational plan that were put together through that process. We also had a broader group of community members that participated in the initial sessions. That was a context building for the team, and we thank them as well. And we're going to have a session in April, kind of preview where we're at, so that those members who were part of that story wall and part of the current experiences work, that we can all get together and see that plan before it's released. But again, I really want to say thank you, and the work was revised many times. So I think that it will be exciting to have a cohesive plan that leads the district forward, and I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you.
Maybe, yeah.
Patty, you're in it. Ethan will take a picture.
Alright, I take a few. Thank you.
Again, on behalf of the board too, we thank the team that came together for strategic plan, and of course the board itself too has been doing their strategic plan in coordination with your strategic plan, and we're all planned. So next on our agenda is item number 6, it's our public comment. And first we'll start off with our rules of civility that Member Eater will read.
Good evening, how's everybody doing? Good? Get ready for these 11 tools, not 10, not 12, 11, okay? So this school board recognizes 11 tools of civility that will provide increased opportunities for civil discourse in order to find positive resolution into the issues that we face in our community. These tools include pay attention, listen, be inclusive, don't gossip, show respect, be agreeable, apologize, give constructive criticism, take responsibility, be honest, and care for others. Show your evidence, share your reasoning.
Thank you. And then Member Sadowski, who's our clerk, will also read the guidelines for our public comment, which is located on our website.
Nice to see everybody here tonight. Our public comment portion of the school board meeting is to listen to community members' opinions, ideas contributed by students, parents, staff, and other citizens that are valuable to the school board. And we're Really glad that you're here tonight. Those wishing to speak during the public comment portion of the meeting should sign up on the sheet on the table, which was in the back. Was it brought up?
I just picked it up. I have it right here.
But Board Secretary Paquette has it, so hopefully you signed up if you wanted to speak. We always allow other people to sign up as well. So she'll bring it up here now. The board asks that each individual limits their comments to 3 minutes. So Chair Lofald will gavel at 2:50, 2 minutes and 50 seconds to kind of give you a little warning. And then at 3 minutes, she'll do it 2 times. And then at 3:05, she'll stand up and gavel because then the 3 minutes will be over. But you'll also see this really nice light here, which is the green light, yellow light, red light. So you can look at that as well. If you have handouts for the board, please give them to Board Secretary Paquette right over there. And follow the civility code when you're making your comments. And if you want to send your comments to the board, you can email them to schoolboard@isd709.org.
And again, we build on our shared beliefs and values of unity when we share our public comment. We share beliefs in our high achievement and our responsible use of resources to create Duluth Public Schools and classrooms that are safe, supportive, and inclusive. We will work to inspire every student to achieve their potential and prepare students to lead productive, fulfilling lives as citizens of Duluth and the wider world. So we welcome our public comment. I know that 3 minutes in my world as a speech coach, we are held to our time limits, and that's where I get my gaveling experience, is that's how we gavel down at our competitions. And if they go over, they do not receive a high score in the round. That will not be held to we will still value your comments all the way through, but again, jump to the end if you know that the gavel is coming as well. So thank you all, we appreciate it. And again, you can send your entire comments to us via your email after your public comment is done, and we appreciate that as well. So our first speaker tonight is Dennis Hansen, and on deck is Michelle Bowler.
Which, each one?
Whatever,
Either.
yeah, you get to choose.
Yes.
And there's a microphone next to you, and that's more because of our community that listens, and it's important for them to hear the words as well.
Okay, do I know if it's working? It's working, thank you. All right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you letting me talk.
Yeah.
I am a father of an active first grader at Homecroft Elementary, and I am here to voice my support for more Phy-Ed classes in elementary schools. I don't want to talk about how increasing physical activity during the school day reduces poor classroom behavior and how it makes it easier on teachers to manage classrooms, which leads to higher math and reading scores and also promotes teacher retention, and it saves the school district money. But I won't talk about that. I do want to mention that the long-term benefits, the benefits we'll start to see in a couple of years if we start increasing our Phy-Ed in our elementary schools. Benefits like reduced truancy in middle school and reduced dropout rates in high school, and a lower crime rate when these kids become adults. And it all starts with proper socialization, and that's actually part of physical education. Phy-Ed is more than dodgeball. And for many Duluth kids, elementary school is their Phy-Ed class, is the first chance they get to learn to play organized games together on teams, like we do in society, and it's their first chance to be part of a team. In Phy-Ed class, it's where kids learn how to learn rules of games and how to learn those, how to learn the rules. They learn how to participate with a group. Phy-Ed gives the kids a chance to figure out how they contribute to a team. Kids will learn to take direction in a group setting. Kids learn to accept corrective feedback and positive feedback. And this is all good for proper socialization, but Phy-Ed classes help with that. But now I'm going to get to the point where this leads to lower dropout rates and stronger neighborhoods. For many kids, Phy-Ed class is their only opportunity to be introduced and play organized sports like basketball, soccer, football, roller skating, hockey, floor hockey, bowling, track, skiing, baseball. And outside of school, these activities are not accessible to all kids because some families don't have time, some families don't have the money, some families don't know because the parents were never involved in organized sports. When we have a meaningful amount of FIAD classes, it gives every single kid, regardless of who their parents are, the opportunity to experience these activities, which creates interest in school-sponsored extracurricular activities in middle school and high school, like football, track, swimming, skiing, golf. And FIAD class in elementary schools gets kids interested in activities that they will want to continue when they get older. And research, I've got the research, I didn't bring it with me, shows that kids who participate in extracurricular activities, and it doesn't have to be sports, have increased social confidence, increased school engagement, which decreases the dropout rate. Because dropping out of school does not happen in one day. Dropping out is a process of increasing disengagement with their school, and participating in extracurricular activities stops the disengagement and increases graduation rates. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Michelle Riley.
I'm Michelle Belker, and I'm a teacher at Myers-Wilkins Elementary. I started teaching in the Duluth Public Schools in 1986, a long time ago, and would like to retire at the end of this year. I have spent my career teaching on the hillside, first at Milton and then at Myers-Wilkins. It is a choice that I have not regretted. I do, however, regret choices that the school district's board and administration have made over the years, and continue to make when thinking about our kids on the hillside. First, the district chose to eliminate magnet schools, leaving hillside schools to become the most racially isolated schools with the highest level of poverty in the district. That was a choice. Next, the red plan put the two highest poverty schools together as one school. Despite our family's reliance on public transportation, the middle school and high school were moved out of the central part of the city. Then any boundary plans that could have lessened the degree of poverty at our school were dismissed. Again, that was a choice. Currently, our school receives funding from additional sources like Title I or Education Equity to help support our students who feel the effects of poverty and systemic racism through no fault of their own. But the district sees that we have extra funding and uses it to supplant other funding, and thus our students receive less when it comes to things like general or ESSER funding. An example of this is when all the elementary schools got extra interventionists in reading and math due to the student need during the pandemic, but Myers-Wilkins only got a half-time position. While the pandemic and distance learning hit students in poverty especially hard, we were provided less additional interventionists to support our students. It is not enough to add an equity to the departmental titles in the district if you are not providing equitable funding. That is a choice. As I look back on my career, I will always be proud of the choice I made to teach on the hillside. I have been able to teach a second generation of students and be colleagues with former students. Our staff and students are resilient, creative, and determined, but our teachers are struggling with the high needs of our students. They are asking for help. Now is the time for you to make sure that the choices you make support the students and staff at Myers-Wilkins. Make better choices.
On deck is Katie Doles.
Hi, my name is Michelle Riley, and I've been teaching science in Duluth for almost 19 years, currently here at East. Board members and those attending tonight's meeting, thank you for your time, hard work, and ongoing investment in our schools. I would like to share some concerns. First, keeping class sizes small is important in any class, but especially for safely managing labs and science, with equipment that could quickly and easily become dangerous if not appropriately supervised. Second, we do a lot of group ALICE training to prepare for an active shooter event, and I feel good about that, but I do not feel comfortable with the security of our building during and immediately after the school day. Visitors are supposed to sign into the office, but our clerical staff cannot manage all the traffic. With the number of students leaving the building during win and lunch, I'm sure this is an impossible situation with the supervisory staff that we have right now. We really need to do something proactive to prevent random adults and students from entering our building, which has happened. And knowing that really scares me, and it should concern teachers, parents, and students. Could we do more to tighten down on security, staff our doors consistently, not let students leave the building during win, make everyone show an ID, or possibly consider installing metal detectors? And my third point, lack of consequences and consistent enforcement of our district's cell phone policy in our school has led to a large student disconnect, not only from their academics, but from their peers as well. I recently observed a lesson at Ordine Middle School, and their consequences, whatever they are, must work. Not one phone or earbud was out before, during, or after the lesson. I couldn't believe it. Lack of consequence and enforcement can only let me dream of students who are not constantly checking their social media, which is not good for their mental health either, playing games, taking pictures of themselves, or writing, or of their homework and sending pictures of it to all their peers. Or worse, students frantically copying from someone else's picture of their work. Many teachers sound like a broken record, asking students to put their devices away or have given up due to lack of consistent enforcement and consequences. My last point, our hallways and student restrooms have changed, often going unsupervised with students wandering without passes and turning restrooms into a meeting place for vaping and vandalism, not a place I want to go. Students flush their vape devices down the toilet to get rid of evidence, avoiding some of the consequences. Many students do not feel safe going to the restrooms by themselves or find them locked on one or more floors of the building, or find no soap because the dispensers have been ripped off the wall. Restrooms are often locked because of the vandalism and graffiti. I really feel sorry for our hardworking maintenance staff having to make the restrooms usable for the next day only to see the same thing happen again. Many of these issues could be solved with an appropriate level of supervisory personnel and administration staffing, and making sure they have substitutes if they are absent. Currently, they do not have a sub when they are out for the day. Our schools have so many amazingly talented students and staff. Please, let's work together to make it a safer learning environment for everyone. Thank you.
After Katie is Ethan Fisher.
My name is Katie Doles, and I am a third grade teacher at Myers-Wilkins. I am also a parent of a fifth grade student, and I walk to work, so I am a community member. I come here tonight sharing experiences from these lenses. As I walk to school in the morning with my daughter, I see students waiting for a bus that takes them to another school. I believe in the power of choice, but I want to know why they are not walking to their neighborhood school. Myers-Wilkins is a magical place. Leadership opportunities, clubs, mental health support are some of the options our students have here. The staff are incredibly dedicated, generous, knowledgeable, and supportive. They work tirelessly to reach their students every day. Our talented paras are truly our saving grace. They deserve more, and our students need more of them. When I started here 3 years ago, I was instantly impressed with the systems in place for behavior support for our students and staff. The unfortunate truth is that we need more support to match the level of need of our students require. I worry as a parent and a teacher that our students are learning it is okay to yell at an adult, slam doors, and throw things. Knowing that relationships are critical for success and the level of intensity our staff are faced with, I am concerned about burnout. I myself am so emotionally drained from the daily battering I receive from my students. There's added pressure from the department for all the list of requirements that it feels overwhelming, but I don't want to quit. I want to fight because I believe in our students, I believe in Myers-Wilkins, and I believe all children should have the chance to feel success. It has been said that Myers-Wilkins is different. Sometimes that can be a negative. I think of it as a positive. We should embrace our differences and do things differently. We can't do this alone. We need the support from you, the leadership from administrators. We keep expecting our day to look the same as all the other schools, and for students to say in the exact way, the curriculum to be the same, but we are not the same. Teachers at Myers-Wilkins need extra training in working with higher risk students. We need support that helps students not only learn, but to succeed. Here are some ideas. A staggered start, more time for planning during the day because students work with so many different members. Partnerships with community organizations, more pairs in the classrooms, increased special education teachers, and support for family and encourage family involvement. I believe thinking outside the box, working together, creative solutions, and being willing to do things a little differently will help make Myers-Wilkins even that more of a special place. Thank you.
Next up is Ethan Fisher, and after Ethan, is it Anna Berry? And Sophia.
Yes. Separate speeches.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Fisher. I'm the current president of the Duluth Federation of Teachers. I'm also a parent of 3 children, 2 6th graders at Lincoln Park and a 5th grader at Piedmont. I wanted to say a few words tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but felt compelled to when I walked in the building and heard the music playing and the kids singing up here in the media center. I want to first speak about the gender inclusion policy that you're going to be hearing about tonight and hopefully voting on, and just say how proud I am of the collaborative effort to get that done. I know our climate coordinator, Jake Laurent, as well as many others, were part of that process. It's best for our kids, it's best for our staff that work with these kids in the buildings, and I appreciate that. I also want to put this out there that over the course of the last year, I want to really recognize the increase that we have seen in collaboration within our labor management process. Assistant Superintendent Bonds and Jim Jubenville are the 2 co-facilitators, along with Superintendent Magus and myself, to bring together over 100 teachers, as well as administration and the various roles that people play in our district, to come together and talk about solutions to issues. I'm most proud of recently, and as you are, I think, all aware, last year out of negotiations, a desire to talk about some things within labor management has led us to the point where we are prepared to present, and started today actually, present a new elementary schedule to the buildings. I feel very positive about this. I want to recognize Brenda Sparts for her work as the Director of Elementary Curriculum, along with the many teachers and staff that were part of that process. And I just think that it's indicative of what can happen when we work together. And we're now starting conversations with respect to our middle school model as well, with Jen Larva, the Director of Secondary Curriculum. Finally, I just want to say that negotiations are near, I think. Chair Lofald and Superintendent Magus, you'll be getting a letter from me with the intent to negotiate, as well as a document sent to the Bureau of Mediation. I'm looking forward to us continuing to work together to provide better opportunities for our students as well as our staff. And I think, as I mentioned, some of the things that we've been working on within labor management have been indicative of the process of what happens when we come together. Finally, I just want to recognize our staff that we have here in Duluth, in particular the 750 certified staff that we have throughout our buildings, that I represent on a daily basis, and just the amazing work that they do. Thank you.
Anna Berry and Sophia Oman, and on deck is Rochelle Frost.
This is concerning the exec and association merge. Hi, my name is Anna Berry. I'm a junior at East High School and a current member of the executive board. As a member of the board this past year, I've been able to have so many valuable experiences. From business inquiries to learning how to help not only lead, but also collaborate productively. I've developed so many skills this year that I found extremely beneficial in my day-to-day life. As a junior this year, I had a full schedule. 4 of my classes were required, and I chose to take Spanish 4 and journalism, both of which are very important to me. If this plan were in place last year, I would not have applied, hence I would not have had these amazing opportunities. So when looking into accessibility of the organization, we should take into consideration the kids that are academically focused, which I can confidently say is everyone in both groups. It should also be known that registration for next year closes this Saturday, and we don't intend to start applications for our boards until next month. The unknowns for future applicants would definitely be an unnecessary stressor. But past the scheduling issues that this proposition presents, there are many other complications that would arise from deciding this change so late in the year. For one, both of our clubs have a lengthy list of activities, events, and service projects that need to get done each year. To combine these lists in an effective manner would take time, which is why we present the idea of a transition year. We would have a committee that's sole focus was on preparing for the merge the following year. I believe that to some extent, combining the groups makes sense. I have friends on Denville's exec, and I have seen how this format works for them. However, there are still many major differences. Denville's board has 18 people. We would have 40. 40 kids in one room would not be an effective or productive use of time. On top of that, our student population is much larger than Denfeld's, and having two organizations is a better fit for the dynamic of our student body. Since we are the governing bodies that represent the school, I believe it is only fair for our voices and opinions to be heard and taken into consideration. Thank you.
Next is Rochelle, and on deck is Jason.
There's a
Kennison.
slight confusion, ours are separate speeches, they just got written in by accident together.
Okay, okay,
I'm
yeah,
Sophia Orton.
yeah. So Sophia?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's me. And so the equity manifesto that has been presented to you aligns with both of our speeches.
Okay, thank you.
Right? Are you more comfortable with me sitting down?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
And then also I printed my speech, but I misplaced it, so I'm reading it off my phone. If that's
Okay,
okay.
okay.
That's totally fine. Okay.
But use your mic.
Okay. Hello, distinguished people of the school board and other participants tonight. My name is Sophia Orman, and I am an 11th grader at Duluth East, and I am also an active member of the Duluth East Association. I am here today to help represent the two student governments, association, and executive board to voice our contributions and concerns to the merging of the two groups next year. We are here today not to discount or overlook the decision that has been made, but to propose a compromise in hopes that the merging of the two groups can be completed in a smooth and successful manner, and that is through a transition year. The details of this transition year are laid out within the Equity Manifesto that has been written by all of the juniors of Executive Board and Association. This document also discusses issues of placing the combined group during the 6th hour of the day and how the issues that have been discussed by the administration can be resolved or assisted with. We hope that by listening to us students and respective parents, as well as reading this document, may help you comprehend the concerns that we are addressing and hopefully allow us to come to a compromise that satisfies all or almost all concerns discussed on both sides. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today.
And Rochelle, and on deck is Jason Kennison.
Hi, my name is Rachel Trost. I'm a community member and a community health educator in the Duluth community. And honestly, I didn't plan to speak tonight, but I came here and thought that I would be remiss if I didn't just voice my support for the gender equity and inclusion policies that are on board. As someone who works with young people in the community of lots of different gender identities, different gender expressions, I know how important these policies are, and to have them actually be codified as policies so that we can enforce them is really, really important to students feeling safe. And of course, we know that learning can't happen if students aren't feeling safe in their environments. And so really, I just came to voice that support, say I really, really believe in it, and thank people for putting this into policy. And as my shirt says, the future is inclusive. I'm gonna leave it at that. Like I said, I didn't have more to say or prepared, but I appreciate this opportunity and thank you. I voice my support for that.
Next is Jason Kennison, and on deck is Olivia Mackey.
Hi, my name is Jason Kennison. I use they, them, and he, him pronouns. I share that with you today to help this be a more inclusive space and open the door for other queer people to share their identities. And that's just what this gender equity inclusive policy would do for our youth. I know this because I am currently a Life of Pride coordinator for at-risk and homeless youth who identify as queer. I've been a GSA advisor, and I've been a queer student and a queer teacher. I hold 2 licenses, one in English and one in ESL. And so what we know about educational theory is the zone of proximal development. Youth learn best when they feel safe, when they feel seen, and they feel heard in our classrooms. It is our duty as educators to meet students where they're at. It is our duty to recognize and help them in their development as they see fit. I also want to recognize that many people in this policy are adults. We have learners at the Area Learning Center who are 18 plus, who want their identities respected. And also, we want the best people in our district working here. We want the best staff. We want the best people interacting with our youth. And many of those people are queer people. And when they see queer inclusive policies in your buildings, they know that this is a safe space for them as well. So I really admire and support your thinking around this policy and your decision-making process in this. And I really hope for an affirmative vote tonight. Thank you.
Next is Olivia Mackey. And on deck is Frances Wittenberg.
Hi, I'm Olivia Mackey from Denfield High School. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our voices tonight. I've been a member of Denfield Exec Board for 2 years now, and as a member of Denfield High School Exec Board, I'm in favor of the gap year proposed by Exec and Association from East. As a student and representative of Denfield, I understand your ethical issues and concerns around the merger, but also understand the problems and challenges it would put on the future presidents of East boards. Coming from Denfield Exec Board, I don't see any issue with East having different community groups than Denfield. Denfield Exec Board is very small. We have a little under 20 students, which have to plan every event outside and inside of our school for the whole year. East has around 700 more students than Denfield has. It makes sense to have differences between the schools. It's important to have differences between us because we are simply just different schools. There needs to be room for all of the East students to find their voice and to be involved in the community surrounding the school. And I believe we should celebrate and support by giving Association and Exec Board at least 1 year to recess to plan and collaborate with each other.
Next is Frances Wittenberg, and on deck is Catherine Nakbar.
Good evening, school board members, Mr. Haggis, Mr. Hans, parents, educators, students. My name is Frances Wittenberg. I'm a Lakewood Elementary School representative and proud mother of 3 children. Regardless of what policies and procedures the school board and superintendents have to discuss and vote on that's mandated by the state, from here on out, I strongly suggest that we also need to bring the parents into the fold and have these sensitive discussions related to our children's education and school environment. For all of us to move forward with the Duluth Public Schools agenda, I highly recommend the school board and superintendents postpone voting either for or against the gender inclusion policy and allow discussion with the parents throughout the school district of the policy and how we are going to implement the plan. By critically thinking our way through in planning for change, I recommend you offer PTA and parents the time and information that we need to prepare how this would impact our children's education and personal development for all. You will have the support and encouragement from parents if you offer us to be part of the solution and detail the course of action if the policy is approved. Give us the opportunity to work with you instead of against you. I personally value our students, I personally value our school district's mission and vision. And I respect the work you have put into the school board in keeping safety as a priority. My concern and question are why do parents feel that we are kept out of the loop in regard to planning for upcoming policy changes? I get it, all discussions and policies are available on the school district websites for us to see, but put yourself in our shoes, the working moms and dads, those who have to help their children with their homework, watching our son or daughter at a band concert. We don't know what we don't know. That is why I'm involved with the Lakewood PTA. And with our community, we can make a difference. Thank you.
On deck after Catherine is Brandon Tier. Thank you.
You can just go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening, board members, student reps, administration. Thank you all for all that you do. Colleagues, many of us are here tonight. Our presence is a sign of how much we value our profession and the students that we work with daily. Notably, we're stronger when we advocate together. In recent weeks, I've been reminded of the importance of this theme, working together, be it as a union, through labor management, or community work. It's imperative that we remember, reflect, and recognize the work that countless people have done before us to help us grow as an institution and a profession. History has a way of showing us that it rarely works to tear down people, create division, or stall progress. Social movements show us that when we work for the collective good, positive change often transpires. During the 1950s, my grandmother was a language arts teacher, drama coach, school newspaper advisor. Life is never predictable, and she became a divorcee and a single parent of 2 young children, which was taboo in some circles. As the now head of household, she inquired with her building administrator, why was she making less than her male counterparts for the same work? My grandmother, inquiring about this discrepancy, was directed to appeal to the board for equal compensation and explain her situation publicly. I can't imagine how embarrassing it must have been. The board approved her pay equivalency, and she never shared that story with me. It wasn't until I was with my aunt, her 60th high school reunion, that a peer shared it. It's a norm now in Minnesota to have a pay schedule with steps and lanes for public school educators, so that we are aware of what that compensation is. Unions helped to make this happen. These changes came with collective action. There's a few current themes here, working together. Recently, a number of district leaders and DFT members, they met with legislators. Last week, I had the privilege to sit down with colleagues at a table, virtually with legislators. During our virtual lobby day, topics were addressed. A student video was shared that supports the importance of counselors and maintaining 5 counselor positions at East. Students wanted to show legislators the importance of increasing funding for our public schools and maintaining a better ratio. That video will be shared with you soon, I spoke with legislators about the sustainability of our profession, how many educators work tireless hours, work second jobs. Between the low compensation workload and a sense of not feeling respected and valued, it's an issue for educators, and many are leaving the field. The disconnect between wages and positions is a theme in our system. You wield great influence, board members, over important budget decisions that will be made for the next year, many of which in recent years have not seemed to include our voices. Educators have worked together, I know also on the collaboration for the gender inclusive policy that's before you tonight. I as an educator support that work that has been done. Educators here also gather as a reminder of how much we care and to advocate for funding and finding solutions together. With respect.
Is it Brandon? Brandon Tier?
Stone, is it Stone?
Oh, Stone, yeah, okay. Thank you. And on deck is Jennifer Fouts.
I came here not knowing if I should speak or not, but that lady from Lakewood kind of summed it up for me. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids in school right now, and we got an email last night about this meeting, and it's the first time we heard about it, and it seemed kind of biased about whoever wrote it was for it to go through, and it just kind of bothered me. So I figured I better come and make my voice known. I am against it, but I'm not against making something work. As far as the lockers and bathrooms go, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that portion. I wish you guys would reconsider it and get us more time, bring it before the PTA, get a little bit more voice into it. That's all I got.
Our last speaker, Jennifer Fouts.
Hi, board and administration and student reps and fellow educators and everyone here. I'm Jen Fuchs, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a parent of 2 Duluth students, a 2nd grader and 7th grader. And I'm also in my 5th year as a social worker at Lincoln Park Middle School. And I am here to express my support for the gender inclusion policy that is coming before you. I know there's been a lot of planning and conversation around that leading up to this evening. I am here wearing 2 hats. One is my social worker hat at a middle school, where we take great care to be inclusive of all of our students, and especially our students who are grappling with the many changing identities that all middle schoolers are dealing with, and then our LGBTQIA 2 Spirit Plus students are dealing with that tenfold, hundredfold, a ton. They're dealing with it a ton. It's really, really hard for them sometimes. It's hard for them to be in a world that doesn't always allow them to live their full selves as they are, as they feel they are, as they feel most comfortable being. And I'm really thankful that our school does have some intentional steps to make that be a welcoming place for them, including staff training, staff resources, teaming that works to support kids through what they're going through and how they are expressing themselves and their pronouns and their identities and their names and how they want to navigate that and how they want us to support them in navigating that. Down to the very, very practical of having singleton all-gender restrooms in common locations so that kids can feel comfortable doing what they gotta do at school. I do not share concerns about restroom safety. I think that if a student were to go to elaborate lengths to pose as trans just so they could go into a girl's restroom, for example, that would be a code of conduct issue and not quite the same thing we're talking about when it comes to student identity. I only have a short bit of time, so I'll put back on my mom hat. In our family, it's really important that our daughters know that all are welcome, all should be included as they are. And when I told my daughters that I was coming to the board meeting tonight, because I hope that they would vote on a gender inclusion policy, my youngest seemed really concerned. There's not a policy already, does that mean my school's not welcoming? And it was a learning moment that I believe having a policy brings clarity and gives certainty to people who have questions, people who haven't navigated this before, which I know a lot of us even in this room haven't, or are still trying to wrap heads around, how to say they and things like that, but I hope you vote yes.
That concludes our signed up people to speak, but we always offer an opportunity for anyone that has heard or wants to come forward and share their comments. Seeing none, that concludes our public comment tonight, board. Thank you all very much. Going on now, we have a full agenda with lots of ideas and things to express, so we are on to number 7 is our reading, communication, and petition, and we did receive just an incredible letter from our Duluth East Nordic ski team thanking us for our support and for the recognition of their success at the state ski by the Minnesota State High School League, and just really appreciative of all that our district offers for Duluth East. And that's under the reading petitions, and they're located on the board book. We move now to number 8. It's the report of the superintendent, where we often share and elaborate on things happening in our district and what's coming up next.
Thank you. And I'm not sure, we seem to be, it was casting for a moment, but it seems to have stopped. Here we go. So tonight's topics, we have a variety of topics. Of course, the student representative reports, strategic planning update, legislative update, some updates on the elementary and middle level scheduling, as well as community and schools outreach. So those are our topics, and sometimes we're able to address some of the things that are brought up in public comments as well. If people are able to stay in here, that can be helpful as well. But let's start with our student representative reports. And Lauren Molitor and Elsa Priest are here today. I'm not sure who went first last time, but maybe you want to switch this time, that'd be great, whatever you.
Elsa, you went first last time, so would you like me to go first today?
And can I suggest that we use the microphone? There's a rather large audience and they're kind of way back, and you also need to be heard on our communication, so even our superintendent and I probably could use one too, but there's a little bit of thought that I'm loud enough, but maybe not.
Quarter 3 at Duluth High School is coming to a close. The end of the quarter is next week, and since my last report, a lot of exciting things have happened within the halls of Duluth. As a whole, Duluth hosted our 8th grade orientation Tuesday, March 7th, which was well attended and received. Incoming students and families were able to learn about our school, our athletics, and more than 40 in and out of school activities and clubs we offer. Registrations for classes for the 23-24 school year conclude on Friday. Our 4 lovely counselors have been very busy making visits to Lincoln Middle School, visiting classes during WIN, stopping by classrooms during English classes to answer any questions students may have and to help with registration, as well as hosting one-on-one meetings by request to ensure students are all signed up for their preferred classes. Now on to the upcoming tests. Our junior class has been preparing for their upcoming ACT. Duluth will be offering the test during the school day on March 28th. We held a prep session for students after school on March 15th, where students got tips from Mrs. Wood, who's a science teacher, and Mr. Lewis, one of our math teachers, on the math and science portions of this test. There have also been WIN sessions this week with some of our Duluth English teachers to prepare students for the English reading and writing portions of the test. Speaking of tests, we are also preparing for our yearly MCA testing, which will be happening on April 19th and 20th. We are planning to follow a 90-minute block schedule like we do for final exams. We held our second Soaring Hunters event for all students who met or exceeded the expectations in the second quarter with a lock-in on March 17th. Students who received an invitation were allowed to participate in fun activities such as social hour, including food and games in the West Commons, a movie in the lecture hall, games in the media center, live-action Mario Kart in the main hallway on the first floor, a glow dance party in the panel lobby, free wheel throwing classes with Miss Conley, and finally, video gaming on the smart boards in the classrooms on the first floor. A new club has been formed at Duluth for Duluth students called AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, which is open to any student who is of Asian descent or anyone who just wants to learn more about Asian heritage. That is open every Tuesday and Thursday during WIN. We also have a new yoga club that happens on Tuesdays during WIN in the lecture hall that is sponsored by the Lincoln Children and Family Collaborative. Any Duluth junior that takes honors or AP English has the opportunity to go to St. Scholastica on Friday to listen to a lecture taught by a local author before getting to have lunch and then participating in breakout sessions. Our 9th grade class will be going on a field trip to UWS this Friday to learn about local post-secondary options and what college life looks like. Now on to the acknowledgements. Select members of the Duluth speech team were invited to represent our school and speech team at the NSBA National Qualifiers. These 17 members, of which I was included in, traveled to Fargo, North Dakota last Thursday to prepare to compete on Friday in Moorhead. Our senior captain, Maddie Watts, ended up being our only team member to break into semifinals, where she competed for a spot in finals. She made it and ended up placing in the top 3, meaning she will be going to nationals in Phoenix, Arizona in June. Congratulations to Maddie. The Duluth robotics team was Lake Superior Regional picked to be an alliance partner and won an award. The title of this award and any further details are unknown at this time because the robotics representative did not get back to me in time. The boys basketball team got to go to a section final for the first time since 2011. We ended up losing this game, but we're proud of our Hunters anyway. There was a combined choir and orchestra concert on March 9th, which included members of Lincoln's Advanced Orchestra and students and staff from St. Scholastica. On a more serious note, on February 28th, Duluth, along with 3 other St. Louis County schools, received a swatting threat. As a precaution, the police presence at Duluth was elevated, and juniors and seniors who have the open lunch privilege were kept inside during lunch as a safety measure. Students and staff did a great job of remaining calm during this event. A week after this event took place, we successfully completed our 4th lockdown drill for the school year to ensure that we are fully prepared in the event that we have to ever go into an active lockdown. And that is all we have for Denfeld at the moment.
Alright, so we've also begun to get in the pattern of the second semester at East. The end of the quarter is coming up next Friday for us as well. So the students and teachers are doing their final touches on their hard work. Registration is also finishing up for this Saturday. Acapella is hosting a talent show on April 6th at the Little Theater at Ordine. We're also looking forward for a break from April 8th to April 16th. The boys basketball team finished their season this month along with boys hockey. Track practice has begun with their first meeting coming up on April 7th. New Key Club officers for the next school year were elected with Matthew Ring as president, Azalea Stess as vice president, and Ola Okoro, Sonia Scar, and Claire Murray as officers. Science Fair also did an amazing job at state this month with many winners and finalists. We had our choir concert last week and our band concert today, and our orchestra concert is coming up on Wednesday. And we have started planning some spring events. We are planning our spring fling casual dance for East students, and we've been thinking of other fun events to host in the spring. Some ideas that have been mentioned include intramural tournaments, powder puff weeks, and an after-school carnival. We're also excited for a Roaring 20s themed prom coming up on May 13th. The CLFI literacy test is coming up for upper level language students, along with AP tests throughout April and May. Many juniors are taking the ACT the final month here as well. There are ACT and National Honor Society tutors available for all students when needed in all subjects. And some students have been expressing concerns about the changes in the school for the next year, especially around the change being made with the student government at East. The exec and association board, which usually function separately before school and during 0 hour, are being combined into one during the school day class. And many students have expressed discontentment to staff and student leaders because of this change. Some challenges include students no longer being able to take the electives they wanted with less scheduled time in the day for them to take them, and a reduced number of students will be able to be involved just because it will be a class instead of 2 clubs, and then less leadership and involvement opportunities for members if it's 1 club as opposed to 2. The positives, like envisioned and stated, however, would include more accessibility during the school day and an opportunity for a credit in that class. Currently, only the exec board is given a credit. It's held during 0 hour, association is held before 0 hour. Some students have been pushing for a waiting period of 1 year for the switch so that they have time to plan the new system and sort of switch over the way of doing things. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. So in addition to the report, we have an update on strategic planning. As you knew, or as we expressed, we have a great strategic planning team that's been working for nearly a year. They had their final meeting to finalize some of the work that they had done on March 8th, and I'll share more at our retreat on April 20th, as well as when we present to the full public on the, I believe it's the 25th. So our next board work session is on the 20th, and during that we will finalize that mission, vision, and values work that we started last time. And I shared the latest version of that with the board through a previous email, but we will continue that work on strategic planning. As far as legislative updates, we have had quite a few updates, quite a bit of work being done related to lobbying. I think it's a very important time for us to consider funding from the state. You heard some of the public comment too about how working together, we need to make sure that we're finding additional resources for our students first, and staff and families as well, which are very important. Chair Lofald attended the Association of Metropolitan School Districts Day at the Capitol earlier this month, and then she and member Lawford Kemp attended yesterday, the MSBA and MASA Day at the Capitol yesterday, and there's a little picture of Representative Kozlowski, who represents our, that was one of the people that we met with, and they represent some of our areas and also are advocating some things from the school perspective. Just in brief summary, what is it that we're looking for? We're seeking additional funding on the per pupil formula. Right now, we're hoping for a 5% and 5% increase for the biennium. The governor's budget proposed 4% and 2%, as well as funding, full funding for special education cross-subsidy, amongst other things. Some of the other things that we've talked about, I think you're aware of when we shared our legislative platform, the things like the $2 million repayment of the $5,000 we lost out on because of a funding anomaly, as well as a tax, a freeze on the sales tax related to construction costs. Those are a couple things that we're looking for. Solar, MTSS, a variety of other things that align largely with the state formulas. One thing that we're really pressing on is hoping that we're avoiding any unfunded mandates. I think that many of the things that are being proposed are things that philosophically we believe in, and we know that they're supportive of teachers and supportive of students. We also have to make sure, though, that if there isn't funding behind it, that we're not overpromising on things that we can't deliver upon. Right now, some of those mandates related to class size and hourly workers and things like that would actually be more than the state has proposed in the 5% and 5%. And so it's not at all that we don't support those things. We think that they're great ideas, but if there isn't money behind it, that money would need to come from elsewhere in the organization. And I think we've had many cuts over the years, so it would be difficult to find extra millions to do that. So just wanted to make sure that that was on record for us. And then this Friday, I'll be testifying at the House Finance Committee meeting in support of additional funding for safe and inclusive restrooms. And part of that is, we've heard a variety of comments related to our gender inclusion policy, and I think one thing that I hear is one of the common themes of concern is concern about safety within our locker rooms and within our restrooms. I think people want an inclusive environment, and people have expressed that they just want to make sure that our systems and facilities are set up for it. And so looking for that additional funding possibility through the support of a bill that's coming forward, that's something that we're trying to do proactively to make sure that we're being responsive to everybody's interest and everybody's need to have safety in our restrooms. So that is something we're looking at. Those are just a few of the legislative updates that we've been working on, however. And as well, related to those legislative updates, the funding targets from the Senate and House of Representatives, those need to be finished, I believe, by April 4th. And so that will be the next big deadline that we see. We should be seeing what that looks like. And then there's work done between then and May to finalize the budget. And we look forward to seeing what that budget looks like at that point. Two other things that we've been working on, and we heard again as well in some of our conversations, were the elementary schedule and middle school model updates. That's work being done behind the scenes by Director Sparks and Director Larva. A couple of things that we're talking about. So the elementary schedule. Through collaborative efforts over the last 10 months, the DFT and the district have been exploring scheduling options for improving both elementary master and specialist schedules. The proposed final schedules for the 23-24 school year are completed and ready to share with sites. DFT members and Director Sparks are presenting in person at each site in the coming weeks. They kicked it off today with their first visit. And that partnership of the Duluth Federation of Teachers and the district are jointly working on a memorandum of understanding to support that new schedule, which will be ready very soon. If approved by the DFT, sites would begin working on their individual site schedules for May of this year, so we would have those schedules in place. And I know we heard a few things about the schedule, concerns about physical education and some changes in physical education. we don't want to have, there was a really big increase in physical education several years back. This doesn't come anywhere close to bringing us back to where we were prior to that increase. It actually only reduces physical education by 8 minutes per week. So it's 16 minutes in a 2-week cycle. So the effect would really only be a couple of minutes per class. But at the same time, it increases the time that we have for art and music and other things substantially more than that 8 minutes. So we're getting more instructional time for our students. There is a slight negative impact on the PE time, but overall there's a pretty significant amount of instructional increase, and it also works out some of the kinks of the scheduling that we have. So those are some things that we're looking forward with that joint work done by the teachers union and the school district. As far as the middle school model work, again, in partnership with the DFT, a 20-member committee kicked off on March 7th, so just a few days ago, or a couple weeks ago now, actually. The work so far includes exploration of what we would call the middle school model. And for those of you who are not as familiar with middle school, I was a middle school principal for 10 years. It was great time. You gotta be in touch with your inner goofball if you're gonna be a middle school principal. Because there's a need to make sure that kids have relationship and connection to the people they work with. And part of the middle school model really focuses on what they call teaming or houses, where a group of teachers work with the same group of students. So you have a group of maybe 100 or 150 kids that work with a set number of teachers. So it's not like the students rotate from class to class to class and nobody has the same group. There's combined ownership and responsibility for the learning for that set group of students. And then we can also collaborate. So if I'm a social studies teacher and somebody else is an English teacher, we can collaborate about what projects we're doing together, and we can make sure that projects and work are combined moving forward. Some of the parameters for completing the work were part of that committee. Also grounding work around the desired daily experiences. So this is an example of how we're using our strategic planning work right now, even though it's not finished. We have completed desired daily experiences as far as final drafts. So we're using those drafts, basically that were feedback from public, feedback from families, feedback from staff and students to make sure that the experience we provide through that middle school model matches the desired daily experiences that people have. Also, the scheduling consideration, again, is something that we want to make sure is supportive of that middle school model that I just discussed. And we want to make sure that we're having extended learning and independent research. So making sure we're looking at what's best and what's new in middle school instruction. And the next meeting is set for April 6th. As far as community outreach and school outreach, basically, as I mentioned before, and you've seen in my goals, one of my goals is to make sure that we have as much time in the schools as possible. So I've been spending a lot of time in schools. We've had the education after hours sessions. The last education after hours session I had was at Lakewood Elementary on the 15th. And we're really seeking to continue those opportunities and really think about how can we increase that and have another round. Probably be an annual thing that we do to get out to each of the schools and have those conversations. And then I would say too, related to some of the questions on when we think about the community outreach. And we heard tonight how parents are wanting to make sure that we have more interaction and more opportunity for dialogue related to new things that come forward, like the gender inclusion policy. I think what would be important for us to do, we've had a number of public meetings, and this is our 4th meeting that we'll be discussing the gender inclusion policy. But I think it's important to note that and we'll talk about that during the policy piece, that work is done because there are state and federal laws that mandate what we do related to gender inclusivity in our restrooms and other areas. And so we're trying to make sure that our policies and procedures match what the law says we need to do, so to create cohesion there. But it is important for us to engage the community and have more conversation. So I think it's important for us to go back to the schools and continue those conversations about what is this going to look like. And we'll talk more about that as we have our policy committee piece, but I wanted to mention here, related to my community outreach, that my intention is for us to continue those conversations, because I think we all come at things from somewhat different perspective, but with a desired outcome of making sure that everybody feels sense of belonging within our schools. That concludes my superintendent's update, unless you have any questions.
Board members, Member Lawford-Ham?
I actually do, thank you. A couple of things. One is I just want to thank our student reps again for your updates. It's always just, I'm always taking notes on dates of upcoming events and that I can attend, and I know many of our board members like to attend as well. So thank you, and just for the record, two of my 4 kids were in association, so I hosted many a gatherings at my house with association, so I appreciate the work you're doing to create a good discussion around that as well. Superintendent Magus, I just wanted to thank you for many of your updates, but particularly on the middle school model. Again, just as a parent, I think when we reviewed our middle school model, probably about 25 years ago at one time, I was a new parent of a kindergartner, and I got to sit on that discussion as we looked at that time about what our middle schools looked like. And so I'm glad you're going to involve parents again in those discussions, because at that time I ended up having 4 kids go through our middle schools, and I had no idea except my own experience in middle school. So I'm excited about those discussions and the way you're going to involve families in that. And then I think that the last thing I just wanted to comment on is just being out in the community the way I am, and I know other board members are, we've heard really positive support to the after hours conversations that you've been having, and yeah, really hope you continue those. I think they've been a great opportunity for any community members, not just parents, to meet with you out in the community clubs that you've been going to and community centers. And I guess I just wanted to kind of also state that, because we have so many people here, many of us board members sit on many community committees, whether it's the city's Park and Rec Committee. I sit on the Head Start Governing Committee of Parents, and I go to monthly PTSA council meetings and PTA leaders. And so I bring up, like the superintendent does when he's at these meetings, the different policies and issues that are coming up as a way to raise awareness, as well as to point people in directions of getting more information as well. And I know other board members do that on the variety of committees they serve on in the community as well. So again, thank you for your many updates, and I just wanted to kind of make that connection to how we as board members also do our own outreach and make sure community members and parents are aware of different things we're doing.
And I don't necessarily think we all have to use this, because that will just keep going back and forth. So,
Thank you.
Member Sandberg.
I'll use my coach's voice.
Yes, there you go.
Thank you. And thank you, Member Lawford-Ham. Student representatives, I want to thank you for your report, and I certainly hope we can find a solution with this issue with association and the exec board. My son served on association, if I got that right. And again, at best, maybe a pause until we figure out our way forward with that. And Superintendent Magus, I want to thank you for being out in the community and in the schools. Bumped into you one day. I also had my picture taken with Yeti. But that was a fun day out at Lord MacArthur. And I appreciate you getting into our buildings across the district. There's a lot of them to stop in and check out. I have a comment on something else, and I think I'm going to bring that up later. But I am also appreciative and really glad to hear that we're moving forward with hopefully some positive changes on our elementary work day for our staff and our middle school work day, and then following a year or two on our high school. day for our students in high school, but, I've had conversations with teachers that are looking forward to some changes that would really, truly be positive for our students in our elementary grades and just programming in middle school, where I spend most of my time as a teacher. So, thank you for making the progress there, and you too, Assistant Superintendent Fox, working instructively with our labor management program.
Thank you.
I just want to jump in on the visits that we've done down at the Capitol in the legislature. In my Duluth News Tribune, first of the year, what was the board doing as we go into this new year? And one of the things I shared was that I thought that because of the surplus, because of having a trifecta in government with DFL, that the school board would best step up to advocate. And I know that we all can't do that, but as a retired teacher, I certainly can make my way down to the Capitol. And it has been a really learning activity, and I have really felt that I want to be there. I'm going down again in a few weeks, and really some of the needs, the 5% and 5%, and the cross subsidy in our district for special education would really be significant, and it would really have the ability to do more for our students and for our buildings and our staff. So the real, there's a lot of fringe things going on, and I know I'm spending my time on a lot of smaller bills that my legislators are saying they're important, but they might fall away because of so many other needs. So I'm down there advocating for 5 and 5 and special education, and just keep it simple. That's what we need. We probably could even do bolder than that, but it's been really nice to have the support of other board members down there too. So thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to go down.
Yeah, okay. And I'll just follow up on that too. It is a great opportunity for us as school board members to go down. And when we were down yesterday, we were with about 180 school board members and superintendents from around the state. It was our Minnesota Association of School Board Lobby Day. And it's really important they're hearing from board members around the state, because we have a big picture view of the district on many, many issues and on our budget and that. And so that's really great. But I just want to say to any community members that are here, as well as school staff that are here, it's important they're hearing from you as well. And so really encourage you to reach out to your local legislators. Our legislative platform for our district, Superintendent Meg has touched on some of them, but that's on our website, and it lists the different areas that we're concerned about. And so I do encourage all of you to, send a quick email to your legislators. They appreciate it. They appreciate hearing from people in the Duluth community. So just an encouragement there. I know I've shared information with PTA leaders from across the city as they've wanted information, and given them their contact information for their elected officials as well. So parent voice is important. Thank you.
And Member Eder.
I just, earlier this month, I had the opportunity to go to freshman orientation at Denfeld with my oldest, and I just wanted to compliment Denfeld, all the organizations that were there, and the Denfeld student leaders that were there to work with the students and to introduce these incoming freshmen. It was just magical. I didn't cry once. I cried a couple times, but it was just an incredible opportunity, and I love to see how the current Denfeld students were there opening their arms and getting ready to bring these new hunters in. It was a great experience. And the last thing I wanted to comment on was the Equity Manifesto, and I just want to compliment all of these students. I loved seeing the coordination between the East Board and the Denfeld Board. It was brilliantly done, very, very good. Next time I see a prospective parent or something thinking about coming in and how are the Duluth public schools? Are they good? How do they do on educating our kids? I'm gonna get out the equity manifesto and I'm gonna say, well, you tell me, because this was beautifully done. So I wanna compliment kids. I love to see when kids take what they learn in our public schools and they use it in their community to advocate for themselves. So that was amazing. And if you know anybody involved in this, please give them my deepest compliments and my most wonderful respect. It was amazing. So thank you.
We too were commenting on it, very appreciative of the work that was done related to that. To be completely honest, this was the first time we had heard about the change, and so I think it's important for us to take some time and talk to the administration of both schools and see what, why the change now, and have some further conversation around it. And I think that we need to really thoughtfully reflect on what's been presented here. So I can't promise that there's what the change will be or will not be, but I promise that there will be more conversation around it.
Seeing no other responses, we're down to 8C. It's just the schedule of meetings and events. And board, we don't have anything next week, March 27th through March 31st. You did hear Superintendent Magus remind us about our April 20th workshop, Professional Development Day on April 20th. And so we're gonna continue on to number 9, report of standing committees. We've got Committee of the Whole, we've got Human Resource and Business Services, and we have the Policy Committee. So I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds, who leads us through the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Good evening again, everyone, and finally, my computer was spinning, and I'm like, okay. open up. So, as usual, I am always excited to not only provide the feedback related to the Committee of the Whole. I just enjoy the Committee of the Whole because it really, in my mind, is the heartbeat of all the committees, because it focuses on teaching, learning, and equity, and everything we do to improve outcomes for kids. So during this meeting, there was a report provided by our Office of Educational Equity Coordinator, Nate Smith, who is also present. He provided an update related to our achievement and integration plan. And he's here to also answer questions if there are other questions related to it. We also had an update provided by our Director of Assessment and Evaluation, Dr. Tanya Lake, provided an update related to our CIT process, that's our continuous improvement team process, and school improvement plan. We also had a presentation provided by Denise Sequoia, our coordinator for American Indian Education. She provided the concurrence and non-concurrence report that has to be acted upon by the board at a future meeting. And then there was also a discussion related to the renaming of the public school stadium by the Denfeld alumni and community group, and that concluded our agenda.
Any questions, concerns? Reminders, Superintendent?
Just a quick comment. I know that Executive Director of Finance and Business, Simone Zunich, has met again with that group, and so the work has continued related to the renaming of the public school stadium, and so there should be additional information coming out. So we're working very cohesively with that group on what next steps will be, just as far as public naming. We also have, as we think about naming, we'll have to be thinking about the more formal naming of our new, what we're calling the District Services Center, as well as our facilities building and transportation building. So related to that renaming, gives us opportunity to have more conversation there as well.
I just wanted to comment, while I wasn't at the COW meeting, I did listen to it, and I really appreciated hearing, particularly from all of our principals, the many celebrations that they felt were important in their schools. So I really appreciated you bringing them together to provide that information, and I again encourage our community to listen to those meetings, because it's a lot of really good information. One way we can inform you on things going on, but particularly appreciated the principals coming with the variety of celebrations that were important to their school.
Then moving on to 9B, it is our human resource and business service that really, due to, I think weather and, conflicts, we met yesterday for our HR and business service. And just a reminder too to our community and to board members that, these are our review of these meetings. These are, just kind of going back and making them into the official school board record and minutes, that these are the items that we covered. So we just heard from the committee of the whole, which was on March 7th. We're gonna hear from HR Business Service, which is led by Chair Eater, that met yesterday, and our policy committee, which is chaired by Member Loeffler Kemp, that met on March 7th. So just a review. We've met, we've seen all of these. We're just making it part of our official record, and also having an opportunity to share it with our community. So take it away, Member Peter.
Great, so we had to reschedule our HR Business Services Committee meeting twice, and we ended up, third time was a charm, we ended up meeting on Monday, March 20th, which was yesterday. We had no guest presentation for this meeting, so we'll move on to departmental reports, and the first departmental report we have is Human Resources. Looking at our Human Resources report right now, we are doing pretty well with our staffing update. We've hired 4 new certified staff and 5 new non-certified staff, and that keeps us pretty well in line with the staff that either retired, resigned, or has a leave of absence. So we're kind of equal who's coming in and who's departed. We have a new HR manager coming in, correct, in June, and this new HR manager is a CTE teacher at another district, and we understand that it's difficult for to hire these CTE positions, so this person will be joining us in June, and I'm really proud of the district for making sure that we are thinking about how our actions affect our neighbors around us, so I was really glad to hear that. We have had 1 bargaining unit request to negotiate, and we heard tonight at public comment that we seem to have another bargaining unit that's getting ready for negotiations. We are still short on teachers and certified staff, and we are very short in our non-certified staff. We heard from several people in public comment tonight talking about paras and custodians and all sorts of our non-certified staff that support our students and our certified staff. So we are still working hard to bring people into the district. We currently have our postings up for next year. We're getting ready to do our next round of hiring for next year. I want to give my compliments to HR, where they have streamlined our process, so we're making sure to get our postings listed quicker so that we have the opportunity to hire the best and we're not scrambling for the staff that we need. Moving on to business services, when we look at our enrollment report, we are currently up about 91 students from our budget. So that is really good news. We're at 8,400, almost 8,500. We're getting close, and we're getting close to the levels of students that we had pre-pandemic. So I feel like we're coming back better than some other the districts that I've seen around staff. So it's always good to have more students than what your budget looks like. Moving on next to child nutrition, the governor just signed the free meals for breakfast and lunch. We don't have the guidance yet from MDE, but Director Zunich was working really hard with child nutrition, and when that guidance comes in from MDE, I know that they'll work really hard to make sure that the transition is going to be really, really smooth. We're beginning to plan for our summer meal program, and this is serving breakfast and lunch at Denfeld, Lowell, Laura MacArthur, Myers-Wilkins, Piedmont, and Stowe. Area eligibility of students is used to determine which schools have these programs, but of course, because we're short in our staffing and short in our child nutrition staffing, what our staffing looks like for the summer is going to determine how many sites that we have open. Coming up, which is always exciting, that comes through HR Business Services, is our food products bids and our RFPs for the year. I always like looking at the dairy because it's amazing how much dairy we go through in a year, so that's one of my favorite pieces. Moving on to Facilities Department, this was our first meeting without Mr. Spooner as he's moved on to retirement, so we all took a moment to think about Mr. Spooner and how many meetings he's probably sat there and how many school board members he's probably listened to. He definitely was probably having more fun though. So as we've all know, we're looking at our capital construction campaign. So Denfeld Tower work is almost done. If you haven't driven past Denfeld and seen how beautiful the tower looks, I really, really, really encourage you. The spire and finial are all installed and we're waiting for inspection. For FY24, the Congdon Playground construction and field damage is being designed to get that out for bidding. And the boiler at Stowe isn't installed and we're waiting for faculty startup. And we have ongoing discussions about PSS track lane 1 and ponding. Construction on the hill is going well. It's moving along really well, and I believe that Director Zunich said that before Mr. Spooner left, you all had a chance to go up and take a peek at it, so that's wonderful. This comes back again, and I think is especially important to take note of when we talk about facilities, is that we are desperately short of custodians to keep our schools clean and safe, but I want to give compliments to all of our workers that are currently doing it now, even though they're short-staffed, and they're doing a wonderful job. Let me just make sure. Yes, okay. Moving on to our technology department report, and I think this was a report that we all paid special attention to, especially when we frame it in what has been happening with the Minneapolis public school system, and they had some pretty significant cybersecurity breaches, and a lot of the data of their students and staff has been compromised, so we complimented Bart as he works very hard to make sure we keep our systems as safe as possible. When our systems are safe, then our insurance doesn't go through the roof, and that's what we as a school board really talk about, is how expensive insurance is for our cybersecurity. Of note is our district does training with our staff to do things like seeing if staff are clicking on phishing emails, and so Bart has been worked hard on his team and we're bringing those numbers down. This is important because for our insurance for cybersecurity, we need to make sure that we're constantly training our staff, and that keeps our insurance as reasonable as you can be, I guess. The technology staff is working really, really hard at getting getting all of our infrastructure installation and configuration done. They need to concentrate coming up soon on making sure that they're moving and getting the technology infrastructure at the new building. They're also working hard. There's been about 550 new Dell desktop systems to upgrade. We've had $2 million in classroom AV upgrades. That's about 150 to 200 classrooms. And so that's going to take our team about 50 to 70 days to complete, and they're starting that in June. We've also had upgrades to our video camera systems and our server upgrades, and this is great when we think about the safety and security of our students. Moving on to our transportation report, we're still waiting for our new buses to show up. They have been a little bit behind, but I'm telling you, they're gonna be here one of these days. We are moving to a new software for transportation, and now it is no longer Transversa, but I think VersaTrans is what we're gonna be using. We have 434 individual routes every day, and those change depending on the drivers that we have. We're short-staffed on our drivers, and compliments to Voyager for helping us make sure we can cover all of our busing routes. We're also having some difficulty with our scheduled maintenance because we're trying to get a new mechanic. So all around, we're struggling with those staffing shortages. Recommended resolutions today that we will be looking at are resolutions B-3-23-3951, and this is acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools. And also B-3-23-3952, which is acceptance of grant awards to the Duluth Public Schools. So those are two things will be, two resolutions that come out of this committee. On the consent agenda, we are gonna have the HR staffing report, and what is of note on our HR staffing report is that we have hired a replacement for Mr. Spooner, so that, that's on this report, right?
We are recommending somebody under the consent agenda.
Yeah, that's on the HR staffing report. That's what's on the consent agenda, right?
Yep.
Okay. Next, when we look at finance, we look at that report. There's some numbers of note on here. Our ESSER 3 funding, we've spent about $4.3 million. Our Fund 6, which is our building construction, we're at about $14.1 million that we've spent. And then when we look at our extracurricular, our revenue and our expenses are matching up pretty good. Director Zunich does a great job of keeping the board informed and gives us a monthly finance fund balance. And if you would like to look at that, that is on our board book. Moving on to our updated hourly and substitute pay rate, which is on pay rate sheet, which is on our consent agenda. There's two changes under building operations. For hourly regular substitutes, that would be $15 an hour, and then substitute for licensed people, that would also be $15. So those are two changes and updates for our hourly substitutes.
Right now?
Yeah.
Starting now?
Starting once we approve it, I'm assuming.
Okay.
We have a, what do I got here? We also have an update, a monthly progress report that details more about what's going on up at DSC and what is happening at Old Central, along with some really great pictures that show the progress of the work that's being done up on the hill. We have also a district property update dated March 3rd. This was previous to when we have closed the sale on the Central on the Hill property, but that sale has been closed, so next month we won't have that report. Moving on to expenditure contracts for February 2023 that have been signed. These are contracts that have to do with any number of services, and you can find specifics on those expenditure contracts on board book. We have, let me look here. Moving on and looking at our no-cost contract, we have 3 no-cost contracts moving forward. 2 of them have to do with student teaching agreements, and 1 has to do looking at our new boardroom AV install up at DSC. We have no revenue contracts this month that we have to talk about. And lastly, in our meeting for our grant applications, we had 4 grant applications that had to do with various cool things going on in our school. Has to do with an NRIP mini grant of $1,000 to purchase t-shirts and supplies to support PBIS work. At Lincoln Park, we also have a grant from Northland Foundation for a kindness campaign at $835, which is a kindness campaign throughout the schools, and shirts for the student council at Lormac. Also some money from the Duluth Endowment Fund at about $1,100. This is funds to be used for training wheels for our new adaptive bikes and wiggle scooters for our DAPE students. And then we also had about $5,000 for some more adaptive scooters called Easy Riders. And then there are 2 other, one from Northland. So this is for PBIS support for our students. And then lastly from Lester Park, about $6,000 for items for classrooms at Lester Park Elementary School. So that concluded our HR Business Service Committee meeting. Yeah.
Thank you for that very thorough and lengthy report, and it's all good stuff, so I appreciate it. And I didn't hear you mention what I'm going to talk about, but if you did, it bears repeating that you know, our staff can refer people to be employed to fill some of our vacancies, and get paid $500 stipend if that person gets employed and works for at least 60 days. So, you know, staff, you know people, and I certainly appreciate that you refer them to help us fill our para jobs and our bus drivers and all of our vacancies that are super important for us to function as a school. It's a great opportunity to get a little extra cash just for talking to people. So I hope we get a lot of referrals.
And I'll just piggyback on that too. It is, you've got to be creative, so I appreciate the idea for coming up to pay a bonus for people that can bring in workers. And I know that you continue, the HR staff and all of our staff continue to try to come up with creative ways, if that's a table at a grocery store or at an event here in town or traveling. I know you've traveled to outside areas to, promote employment, but they'll just continue to work hard, because I know that's a recurring theme, and so you're probably wondering, well, what are you doing? We're short of everything, so what are you doing? And so we're doing at least what we can, and hope that we can continue to do that.
Thank
Other
you.
questions, comments?
Just piggybacking on that, Director Severance has done so much work with her team related to the timeline for hiring and staffing that we're months ahead of where we were last year, and months ahead of where we were the year before. So those innovative changes within the systems, I think, are beginning to pay off. We are in tough times related to hiring, and I think many of us are constantly out there trying to recruit, and so now if there's a little extra bonus for it, I hope that encourages people to come through the door. But thank you, Executive Director Severance, for the work.
Members up.
Yeah, I would just like to echo Member Eater's gratitude for Bart and the efforts that he and the rest of our staff kind of put into keeping our schools and our students safe and their information safe from a cyber attack. So I just appreciate that update, and I actually just read about it, as maybe many of you did, in the MSBA journal that we got. There was an article, so that was really timely update.
Yeah.
Very appreciative of him.
Okay, that brings us to 9C, led by Chair Loeffler-Kemp in our Policy Committee.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm going to be updating on our Tuesday, March 7th policy meeting, but I thought before that I just kind of state a couple things. I feel one of my roles as a school board member is to make sure parents and community members know where to get information, and we all promote as board members that all of these many meetings that we attend are recorded for the community to also learn as well. But in terms of the policy, that is one of our major roles as school board members, is to pass policies, on our website, the list of our policies are there for the community and for parents to review. And then also in the parent handbook that gets sent home, as well as it's on the website, it highlights a lot of policies or guides you to the policies. So I just like to make sure people know where to find them. As a policy committee, we meet each month before this regular school board meeting, and most of our policies that are brought forward have been looked at for many months before we, by administration and the appropriate staff in our district and our legal team. Many of our policies also have model policies that come from our Superintendent's Association as well as our own School Board Association. So they're looked at and brought forward to us from another group that their legal team has also looked at as well. So that's just kind of a little bit of background on policies and before they even come to our monthly meetings. And most of our policies go through 2 meetings, 4 meetings, but 2 policy meetings and then 2 regular board meetings before we vote on them. So there's an opportunity for input in that way as well. And they're posted ahead of time as well. So just kind of a little background there. And I was not at the March meeting, and I want to just thank School Board Member Paul Sanholm for leading that. I did listen to the meeting because, again, all of our committee meetings are on YouTube right after our meetings. So thank you for your leadership on that and the thoughtful discussions you and Member Sadowski, who serves on this committee with me, had. We have two policies. We have no policies for our first reading. We have two policies for our second reading. And then both of these policies will be on the consent agenda later on to vote on. Again, both of these policies we've reviewed in February and March at the policy and the board meeting. And so the second reading policy is policy 521, student disability non-discrimination. And again, as written in the policy, each policy has a purpose, so I'm just going to highlight the purpose of this policy is to protect students with disabilities from discrimination on the basis of disability and to identify and evaluate learners who, within the intent of Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504, need services, accommodations, or programs in order that such learners may receive a free, appropriate public education. And then it goes on, like most of our policies, in a bit more detail. And one of the points of this policy, as we've reviewed it, is just who coordinates this, and it is Assistant Bonds, our Assistant Superintendent, with the address and the contact information. And then with all of our policies at the end, it references the legal requirements and kind of cross-references different policies when we've reviewed them in the past, when we've adopted them as a board. So a little policy 101 in here while I'm doing that. So again, policy 521, student disability non-discrimination, will be on the consent agenda for us to vote on for the second reading. And then the next policy is policy 541, gender inclusion. And I guess I do want to say just a couple things because this has been a topic for tonight, is that, you know, we all recognize that this the topic of gender inclusion in this particular policy is very sensitive. As our superintendent mentioned earlier, it is the district's intent with any of our policies and procedures to have them in place so they align with state and federal laws to ensure the safety of all of our students. And by having these policies in place, that allows us then to move forward with plans for implementing these policies and putting processes in place. We've had a lot of feedback on this policy from many perspectives, and we really appreciate the time people have given us on that. Before this policy was brought to us in February, for a few months, we had many staff already working on it, including Jacob Laurent, who's here with us, who's our climate coordinator for the district, and he presented at our February 7th meeting when this was first brought forward to us. Really appreciated some of the thoughts that you brought forward in terms of training that is going to happen and has already happened. And your work on this, Jacob, really appreciate that, as well as Assistant Superintendent Anthony Bonds, who brought together a lot of the administrative work that needed to happen before bringing it to the board. We also, just with this policy, our Minnesota Department of Education has a toolkit dealing with safe and supportive schools on the topic of transgender and non-conforming students, and that was put into place in 2017. I remember being a part of that support for that toolkit that is available for school districts like ours to give us guidance in moving forward in thoughtful ways. So just a little bit of background there on this policy and the board discussions that we've already had on this. This policy 541, again, gender inclusion, the purpose of the policy that's listed is that students and staff of Duluth Public Schools deserve respectful and inclusive learning environments that value students' gender identity and gender expression. Duluth Public Schools ensures that all students have access to programming and facilities in which they feel comfortable, supported, and safe. This policy addresses the inequities some students, including intersex, transgender, two-spirit, gender non-conforming students, and gender questioning students confront as they navigate a system designed using a gender binary model. These guidelines do not and cannot anticipate every situation that may occur, as every student is unique. The support for each student must be addressed individually based upon the student's specific requests and needs. And these guidelines are supported by a number of current district policy as well. And then at the end of this policy, again, like all policies, it does reference the legal statutes that this policy falls under, that we need to be following. So that is included in this policy along with other information. And again, we'll be voting on it in the consent agenda. Member Sedholm or Member Sadowski, who serve on this committee with me, do you have any additional comments you want to share?
I would just add gratitude and thanks to Jacob Laurent and other staff for their hard work on this policy and all of the thought and research that went into it. I absolutely support both the policies that were on the consent agenda this evening. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Superintendent Magus or Assistant Superintendent Bonds, because it's been brought up tonight in more than one context, and that is helping everyone understand the plan moving forward for restroom safety. Having been in elementary schools and knowing that teachers at the lowest grades escort their students to the washroom, and catching imposters, or for lack of a better term, is not likely to be a problem. And in all our buildings, we've made an effort and we've lobbied for additional support for gender neutral washrooms and facilities too. And again, we have a lot of that in place. But can you outline any other plans or how we're going to move forward in our buildings, so parents and students and staff can feel comfortable as we move forward with this policy when it comes to our laboratory facilities.
Sure, and I'll address that, and Mr. Bonds might add some things related to our locker room facilities, just because that's a factor as well, and we continue to meet on that and have additional conversation. Our current practice is that we have gender neutral bathrooms in place in our schools, so we have facilities in each of our buildings that are identified as gender neutral bathrooms. It's not a perfect situation, to be honest, because most of those bathrooms are single stall or single person bathrooms, and sometimes people do engage in things like vaping and things like that in the bathrooms. Anytime there's a chance for one stall place, so I know that's something that's come up as a concern. I think when it comes down to it, though, what affirms my sense of safety related to this, we've heard a theme in some of our comments that were received in email and other places related to how are we going to make sure that somebody isn't choosing to identify as female for a day when they might be male birth, as far as birth identity. And really the process for going through this, it's not a picking or switching from day to day. People can choose which pronouns they use, of course, but the procedure to go through to make sure that you're identifying is something that's not taken lightly within the school district, nor is it something that with a single day that somebody is able to say, I'm going to identify this way this time so I can go into the girls' locker room, for instance. That's one thing that is we don't see, and it hasn't been a problem in other districts at all, from what I've seen. And it's something that, again, it's not a simple process necessarily to say I'm going through transition. So that's something that we make ourselves aware of as well. But we do need to continue to improve our facilities as well. We don't have, we want to make sure that in each of our locker rooms there are abilities to make sure that if there's a student that is identifying in a non-traditional sense, that there are opportunities for those individuals. So you want to express where we're at with our locker rooms?
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. You summarized the restroom accommodation that we are making and plans that we have put into place already. So with regards to our locker rooms, at this point in time, in conversations with our athletic directors, we want to know, has this been the situation at this point in time? And at this point in time, there has not been a situation where a transgender or a gender fluid student is requiring an accommodation. So it hasn't been an issue at this point in time, but as part of our readiness in case that situation does arise, there are processes that have to take place for the student to receive that level of accommodation. And it's really mapped out already in the Minnesota High School League Association's handbook, and there's a lot of details on how a student and or family can go through a process to receive that level of accommodation, including things such as a medical documentation from a doctor. It could be, there's like 5 or 6 things that a student or family would have to demonstrate or prove in order to receive that level of accommodation. So, situation by situation, administration will work with the family and that student to discuss the level of accommodation needed. So we are gearing up to respond appropriately when the need arises. And the ADs are already thinking about how is this going to look, including identifying separate spaces for students to change if they want to change for privacy. That includes students and students who are gender fluid as well as non-gender fluid students as well. Because they too want privacy, there will be opportunities for them to choose that facility to change in the locker room as well. So we're working through a lot of these things, and we're going to be really thoughtful, and we're going to have to make sure that we figure out a well-defined communication plan, not only for our students, but also for our families and staff as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say I really appreciate your question and the clarifications that came around that. I remember at our February 7th meeting asking about the procedures component that will complement this policy. And thank you for the update and all the hard work on that, and the continued hard work in the future.
I think it's important to continue engaging the community so that the community is well informed around this, as well as this policy does affirm that we support all students, no matter what their gender identity. So there is an affirmation there within our policy. And as Member Loeffler-Kemp pointed out, really the main intent is that there are state and federal laws that say that this is what needs to be adopted within schools, not necessarily that there needs to be a policy adoption, but we believe that it's important to have policy around things, especially when things are this sensitive, because if it's left to individual determination of individual teachers or individual schools, as opposed to having thorough guidelines and procedures, then it makes it less comfortable for everybody involved. And so this is really about making sure that all students feel valued and all students feel safe and a sense of belonging in their schools.
Member Osborne.
I too appreciate the explanations of how the processes are in flux and how they're being developed and that there is planning going on. That's not something a policy addresses, and that's been my response to many of our community emails that we've received, is that there are processes in it, and they've asked for clarification on what those processes are, and I'm like, they're being developed. Ask your school, as this policy goes on. A policy isn't meant to address the hows and the whys and whatever. It's to provide direction on how to, on the topics to address in the processes that we use every day. There's another group of people that reached out that we received a lot of emails about voicing their beliefs that there's only a man and a woman and expressing their religious views. And my response to that, seriously, is that we, as a school board, I don't believe can debate, the hows and the whys of religion. We have to deal with our realities of what presents to us within our schools every day. And what presents to us is the struggles of the LGBTQ plus community. And that's sad for us. Well, for me, I shouldn't say that. It's sad for me, and we know that we're charged with making every student feel safe in that school, and we can't ignore a minority group of students, just because there's a majority that wants to exist in the status quo, and the status quo isn't working for the minority. So this policy is a great starting point. It's not perfect, and it will be updated, it will be reviewed, there'll be additions and subtractions, because that's the process that we're going through. We created this policy, the committee created this policy with a lot of help and guidance with others within the district and community that I know of, and it's really hard to be, the first one to stand up and say this is important, but yet we're doing it, and other school districts have been doing it around slowly but surely, and I personally am proud that we're taking the steps to make a group of our students feel safe and secure. My job is to work towards making it safe, so why not work with those students? I know that I recognize, and I want to affirm that I understand this makes other students feel uncomfortable. But it's not a damaging uncomfortable. And the greatest amount of growth happens when you're not in your comfort zone. That's what we all experience. This may be beyond some of our comfort zones, yet we're pushing forward and standing up to be leaders to do what's right for these kids. And so I want everybody to know, I'm gonna vote, yes for this. So those students that this policy helps have a way to believe that we see them and recognize them and hear them and want them in our student community. So that's all I have to say.
Member Stein.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick? Yeah, it's until you look into just the challenges that these students and these human beings, these adults, young adults, deal with. It's kind of shocking, the suicide rate, or even those contemplating suicide that are in this group along with the rest of the LGBTQ community, you know, because it's those considering it, it's well over 50% and even higher for the boys. And I get it that people struggle with this. I really do, because, you know, some of us of my generation, you know, can look back to just how things changed maybe in the 60s or 70s when, you know, gay and lesbian people started coming out, and we realized we had friends, we had family members, we had work colleagues, we had, you know, people we knew very well that were gay and lesbian, and, you know, they had to struggle with that at that time, and the reality of it is the rest of the LGBTQ community existed back then too. You know, but so we go through these learning experiences in life, you know. Every day we go out there, whether we buy a cup of coffee somewhere or go to the grocery store, you know, we have daily transactions and or encounters with LGBTQ people in our community, and there so many of these people that I know, and again, I think part of it too is, you know, once you realize and then develop relationships and or get to know people in this group of human beings, you have a better understanding and of just the challenges that they face at present and then that they're going to face going forward. I also think students are probably better at dealing with some of these things than adults, and I think they'll help us work through these issues in our schools.
Member Eder.
Just thinking about the history and how we've moved from bringing this policy forward. This is not a choice of the Duluth Public Schools. Minnesota has what's called the Minnesota Human Rights Act. And what that Minnesota Human Rights Act says is that the state law prohibits discrimination in employment, and what's important for us is education based on a protected class. And gender identity is a protected class. So this is already law that has been litigated in the state of Minnesota, having to do with with students who are gender fluid or gender expansive, and their Minnesota civil right, a civil right that Minnesota has given them that says that you can use the bathroom or the locker room that matches your gender identity. Personally, I am completely 100% in favor of having this policy because it pulls out question. It puts the district in a place where, as a school board, one of the most important things that we do is policy and budget. And so when we have a policy in place that aligns with the Minnesota Human Rights Act and then the federal Title IX Act, that means that we don't have to worry about our budget being impacted by lawsuits coming from students who are trying to get the district to recognize that they have a gender identity that allows them to use a bathroom or a locker room. So this is not a choice that the Duluth Public Schools has made. This is us being proactive and being student-centered to make sure that when we look at all of our students, that we recognize the fullness of their being, right? We recognize them as separate human beings with agency, and that agency comes from being able to identify and tell the world who you are, right? You get to determine who you are and how you would express yourself in public, So the Duluth Public Schools has now taken this policy. The policy committee has worked very hard looking at a model policy and making sure it fits for the students and families of the Duluth Public Schools. That being said, there is not a choice. Minnesota has state civil rights laws that says that students can identify a gender how they want, and then they can use those facilities that identify with that gender. So this is done being litigated. There's not much left to talk about. What the Duluth Public Schools is working very hard, and I commend Assistant Superintendent Bonds, climate coordinators, everybody who has worked hard on this is trying to make sure that we have a solution and a policy that works and is specific to the Duluth Public Schools and our teachers and our students. So I want to commend all the work, and personally, I am very supportive of this policy, not just because it aligns with state and federal law, but because I believe that when we make these decisions, the most important thing to make that decision is the student in front of you. So I understand that this is going to be a little bit bumpy, and we're gonna have transitions, and it is our job as a school board and an administration to go meet people where they're at, regardless of how they feel about this, whether they are in support or they are in opposition. It is our job to go out and have those conversations and make sure that we are thinking about the students that are sitting in our classrooms every day. So I fully support this policy. Personally, as a parent, I have 2 kids in the Duluth Public Schools. I'm comfortable with my 2 boys going to the Duluth Public Schools. I'm happy that they're there. I love seeing their friends. I know their friends are happy and healthy. So this policy has my full support, but regardless of my personal support, it's that this is an obligation that the state of Minnesota says that our students cannot be discriminated against in their education, and part of their education is access to where they want to go to the bathroom and where they want to get dressed for gym class. They have a right to make that identification. So that's what I have to say. So thank you for working hard on this.
Any other?
I was just gonna share that the Minnesota State High School League has also provided much learning and opportunity for our coaches. As a coach in our Duluth district, I know that I have had opportunity for the Minnesota State High School League's videos, their handouts, their policies. So as a coach, I understand my responsibilities with travel, with lodging, with understanding my team. So, you know, along with our school district providing opportunities for teachers, our coaches and our ADs are also connected to the Minnesota State High School League, which any of us could also access and learn and reach out to as well. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate, as the chair of this committee, the thoughtful discussion and comments from our board. And I know that this is really personal for many of us for different reasons. And but wearing our role as school board members, I know all of us are guided by providing a safe learning environment for all of our students. And I mentioned in some of my other comments too, and I just want to highlight it again, the Minnesota Department of Education, and Jill and I and Superintendent Vegas heard from a couple of their staff yesterday as part of our lobby day on some other topics, but their role is to help districts work to ensure all students in Minnesota, regardless of their color, their race, religion, gender, or sexual orientation, are afforded a safe and supportive and welcoming school environment where they can be successful. And that toolkit that they put together in 2017, again, already almost 6 years ago, and I remember the discussion and the work that went into that, was to provide guidance for school districts to provide safe and supportive school environments for transgender, non-conforming students. And so, you know, we have looked at many resources to help get us to where we are today. And as Member Sandholm so thoughtfully said, you know, we have students, because they don't feel welcome, we have students around the country, that particularly male students that are committing suicide. So we can't keep waiting. We need to keep moving forward as a district with putting practices like this into place. And we can't keep waiting. So I am so appreciative of the thoughtfulness of this board. And again, as it's been said, the work that administrators have put into this, that Assistant Superintendent Bonds, Jacob Laurent, our climate coordinator, our social workers, our counselors, different community members to get us to this policy today. And I look forward to it being voted on in our consent agenda. And is there any other comments before we wrap up this committee report? From anybody? Then there are no additional regulations, and that is my report, Chair Leopold.
Thank you. Thank you. So we go on, we're at number 10, it's our general board committee updates. Does any board member have an update on a committee you went to this month?
I did.
I went to EAC, where they're really growing really rich and deep committees. I think some of them are planning to come forth and maybe bring some information and ideas and to the board, which I look forward to. I had a notebook with all these notes that I wanted to bring, and then I forgot that little notebook that I brought to EAC, so I feel bad about that. But just they're working very hard on many issues and doing a lot of research, and I think they have a lot of good ideas, and I'm looking forward to hearing from those community members, which include a lot of our staff, but also other members of our community and different organizations. So I'm looking forward to them bringing those in. And then member Eder and I met for the intergovernmental meeting with Commissioner Ashley Grimm. So we had our first meeting. It was kind of more of a planning meeting, but I think we talked about it being a little bit more of an active, not that it wasn't active, but really focusing on some issues that we can collaborate on as a district with our county commissioners and city folks as well.
It was a really productive meeting, and we talked about doing some work so that we're not working this, jumping around this, that we've decided we're gonna do some work together collectively and do our own like mini, I don't wanna call it strategic plan, but mini like framework so that as we do the work moving forward, we have a goal that we're trying to work towards, and that will be a collaborative process between the county, the school board, and the city. So I'm really excited about that.
Who's the city council member?
Councilor Tomanek and
Osborne?
yes, let me just take it. I believe
I
so.
believe
I'm not pulling it either, so.
Tomanek and who?
Osborne, Oswald.
Yeah.
Okay. And Patrick Boyle with Ashley Grimm, or just Ashley?
Oh, let's see here. Let me, nope, that's the calendar. Oh my
It's
God.
okay. I just know that others of us have sat on that board.
Yeah.
Other updates, other boards?
Yeah, I'll just do a quick one. I serve on the Head Start Parent Advisory Board as the school board liaison, and this is parents from all of our different sites across the district, moms and dads. They're just such a great group of parents to meet with each month and just hear from. And they are really excited about their state conference that they some of them get to attend coming up in April. Because of the work the Head Start team has done and our early childhood team has done around naturescapes at some of our schools that we celebrated, I think it was last fall, I can't remember, we celebrated that already, but they are going to be presenting at a national conference in June, some of the Head Start parents and staff, so that's really an exciting thing. And you might remember pre-COVID, we would be invited to an end of the year celebration that parents have. And they're in the planning process of that, and they generally invite board members to that sometime in May. So I'll let you know the dates on that. And then the other board that I serve on is our Public School Endowment Fund, and we will be meeting in a week or so to review the 30-some grant proposals that came from district staff, and we'll be deciding on the grants of between $500 to $2,000 that generally go to about 15 to 20 across our district anyway. So more updates on that. And I know many of us serve on many other boards that don't directly have to do with the school district, but I do serve on the Great Lakes Aquarium, and I have to just put a plug in for their Aqua Affair event this Saturday. A fun evening fundraiser at the aquarium. And the aquarium, actually supports our public schools in lots of ways. They have kits and trainings for our teachers. They have a bus scholarship to get schools to come and help with the bus costs. So they're, for many reasons, come to the Aqua Fair with me if you want. That's my update.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to just look at our consent agenda. We've had it, we've referred to it through the committee. I'm looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Member Eater, a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to number 12, it's our resolutions, and I've asked for our board members to read these resolutions into our minutes. So we've got the donations to the Duluth Public Schools.
Acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals and organizations. Thank you. And I believe we went over the list of exactly what donations were, but either, we've had thoughtful donations to East Homecroft, Lester Park, Bourdain, Stowe, and Washington ECFE. I move resolution 3-23-3951.
Is there a second?
Second.
Member Lockwood seconds. This is a roll call vote. So, Clerk Sadowski.
Member Eater.
Yes.
Member Kirby.
Yes.
Member Laflamme.
Yes.
Member Wilfo.
Yes.
Member Oswald.
Yes.
I vote yes. Member Sandholm.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Next, our resolution for grants.
I move resolution B3-23-3952. Resolution is acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota Statute 46503 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to this organization. And we just have one this month, which is a Northland Foundation grant. And it's for Laura MacArthur Elementary School. It was written by our Dean of Students, Shane Johnson, and Cal Harris, our integration specialist. And it's the kindness campaign throughout the school and shirts for the student council for $835. So I move resolution B3-23-3952.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Donation, grants accepted 7-0. That brings us to 13, special resolutions and action items. There are none. That brings us to 14. Are there questions or other? I just want to thank board members. You obviously, you always do. You always do, so I shouldn't say, but you came really prepared with your notes, your comments, your questions, your insights. Just really thank you for a really strong meeting with just a good focus. So thank you, I appreciate that. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Member Oswald, a second.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.